The Punisher is a 1989 film directed by Mark Goldblatt, who had previously directed the awesomely underrated Dead Heat. Released by New Worlds Pictures Australia with a budget of $9 million, it only grossed at max $943,225. And due to New World's bankruptcy problems, the movie wasn't given a US release in theaters, but a VHS release instead. While The Punisher is one of the two comic book movies to come out in 1989, the other is a cult classic, Batman. While I do admit it is a good movie in its glory, I prefer The Punisher over it. The reason why I bring up Batman 1989 is because well...
Who sent you?
Batman.
Also from, and I quote, TV Guide's Movie Guide gave the film 3 out of 4 stars, praising Lundgren's portrayal of the character and compared the characterization of the Punisher to that of Frank Miller's reimagining of Batman in The Dark Knight Returns. They further praised the film's atmosphere, calling it genuinely comic book-like rather than cartoonish. While I know very little of Frank Miller, what I know from Linkara about Frank Miller is really negative. Dolph Lundgren, who's previously He-Man, comes back and takes the role as Marvel's armed vigilante, the Punisher. Dolph himself not only got physically fit for the role of the Punisher, he himself actually did most of his own stunts and co-wrote the Punisher's monologue from the beginning of the movie to the end.
Come on, God. Answer me. For years I'm asking you why. Why are the innocent dead and the guilty alive? Where is justice? Where is punishment? Or have you already answered? Have you already said to the world, here is justice, here is punishment, here in me?
The fight scene on Coney Island was actually a fight scene inside of the Coney Island Funhouse. To this day, the building still stands. Although already, this is one of the movies where Stan Lee does not make a cameo appearance. In modern movie standards, this would be considered an outrage, but Stan Lee didn't come up with the idea of the Punisher. Likewise, why he didn't appear in Ghost Rider. One of the biggest complaints about the movie that I've gathered by many is the lack of the Punisher's signature skull. While his skull isn't on him, it's actually in several scenes.
Look, there's somebody there. I got the tight shot. I'm gonna cover it. Who is that? Cover this. Get hold.
Yes, again.
The reason for this is because when Marvel handed over the rights to The Punisher, they were limited to only using Frank Castle and not his signature skull or any of his defining traits. None of his rogues like Jigsaw, who would eventually be in that awkward Punisher war zone. Not much of his past is mentioned, but the production team knew enough of the Punisher, and with the name, they made a solid and pretty loyal adaptation of the movie and the character at the same time. The Punisher is one of the earliest entries into the comic films being rated R. It wasn't until Blade, another Marvel comic, came out that comic book movies would be receiving the R rating again. While a lot of cuts and edits were made during the making of the film, there is more than 15 minutes worth of deleted scenes in the movie, most of which show the life of Frank Castle before becoming the Punisher, and the other being one of the most powerful scenes in the movie.
No, please don't. No. Super clown. Kissing you.
It's easy. All you gotta do is aim. Pull the trigger. Come on. Get it over with. Don't you want to be like your dad? Come on! Do it! Do it! Blow my head off! Huh? You need some help? Watch. Watch! Frank! Frank! He'll find out.
All in all, the film isn't that bad, and it certainly doesn't deserve the hate it receives. In fact, it's aged quite nicely, and that film score does make the scenes far more grander as it should be. And while I've mentioned the sequels and other Marvel flicks, I'll make one thing clear about the Punisher in this film. There's one thing that everybody who seems to see the Punisher automatically doesn't think is that the Punisher is a tragedy. He lost his family via watching a gangland execution. Him surviving the gangland execution and him turning to his own side of justice isn't something that I would call harmony and peace. His route to violence is justified. He tried to go down the peaceful route, but he can't forgive. And that's something Frank Castle will always have as a character trait. His ability not to forgive. His own way through life. He ultimately was a tragedy. And him becoming a tragedy and seeing everything that he can do forms the Punisher himself. He can't forgive. And everything he went through was tragic. Losing your family isn't easy. And that's something that this story acknowledges. When Frank was going to go save the children of the mobsters, he actually had to think. And he looked at the photograph of his children. If there's one thing that any parents can't stand, is to watch someone else lose their child, even if they lost their own. That's something that this movie seems to understand. Is that the Punisher isn't just a vigilante. He was also tragic. He's a tragedy at one point. And you have to look at him in that point of view to see how the tragedy formed. And like the deleted scenes, there was going to be a planned sequel, which makes this next scene have a little more weight.
Here, just in case. Have it your way.
15 minutes. You hit the second button.
And with all the Marvel movies coming out nowadays, to me it's personally too much. Don't get me wrong, they're all good movies, but to me personally, The Punisher from 1989 will always be my favorite Marvel movie. It's just something about its atmosphere and tone that I just find bewitching. I don't know about you. You can have your Guardians of the Galaxy, Iron Man 2, Captain America, but for me, it'll always be the 1989 Punisher movie. Also, this is the best scene in any Marvel movie to date.
How you been? Busy. I know. No, you have. I'm in charge of the body count. What the hell happened, Frank?
Frank is dead. All right?
Oh, I see. So you, decided everybody else had to be dead too, is that it?
No. If you're guilty, you're dead.
Courts decide who's guilty, not cops. I hereby swear to uphold the law. Remember? I've been looking for you for 5 years, man. Why the hell didn't you come to me for help?
didn't need your help.
You're sick. You know that, don't you? And what the fuck you call 125 murders in 5 years, huh?
Work in progress.
This is no fucking joke here. They are going to electrocute you. And there's nothing I can do anything about. But you gotta talk to me, man. Let me in! Let me in! My fucking family too, right? They were my family too. Now let me in, goddamn. Let me in! I see. You wanna die? Is that what it is, huh? Well, fuck you. Go ahead and die. The Frank I knew died 5 years ago. Fuck you!